Chapter 1. The Waking. You wake in the middle of the night, though you cannot say why. It is not a dream that rouses you. Your mind holds no images, no fragments of half-formed stories. It is not a sound either, at least not one you can remember. Yet your eyes open, wide and alert, as though something has nudged you into awareness. The room is still, too still. The clock beside your bed ticks with a patient rhythm, each second carving through the silence. You stare at the ceiling first, tracing the faint cracks and shadows the moonlight paints. You listen for the ordinary sounds, pipes settling, branches scratching against the window, but none come. It is the silence that unnerves you most, the sense that the entire house is holding its breath. You turn your head, slowly, as though compelled by something unseen, and then you notice it. The corner. At first, you think it's just the dark playing its usual tricks, a shadow stretched long, or the outline of clothes draped carelessly across a chair. But the longer you look, the clearer it becomes. There is someone standing there, a man. He is tall, his outline sharp against the wall. His shoulders are squared, his arms hanging stiffly at his sides. You squint, hoping the features of his face will reveal themselves, but the light refuses to touch him. His face is hidden in darkness, even though the moonlight falls just inches from where it should be. You freeze. Your body tenses beneath the blankets. You want to whisper, to say, "Who's there?" But something inside of you holds the words back. Some instinct, deeper than thought, whispers, "Don't let him know you see him." The clock ticks on. Your breath grows shallow. You stare and stare, but the man does not move. His stillness is worse than any sudden lunge, worse than any sound he might make. Stillness means waiting, watching. Your throat is dry. You swallow hard, the sound loud in the quiet room. Tick, tick, tick. Minutes pass, or maybe it is longer. The man remains. You try to convince yourself you are imagining him, that your eyes, heavy with sleep, are inventing a phantom. You blink, slowly, testing the trick of vision. But when your eyes open again, he is still there. Always there. The silence is unbearable. You whisper, barely a sound. "Hello?" No answer. No shift, nothing but that impossible stillness. A thought coils in your mind, unwelcomed but insistent. If you close your eyes, he will move. And though exhaustion pulls at your body, your eyes burn from being held open, you dare not shut them. You wait, and you watch. The man in the corner waits too.
Chapter 2. The First Night. You don't dare to close your eyes. The minutes crawl by, measured by the sharp, steady ticks of the clock on your nightstand. At first, you thought the sound was comforting, ordinary, grounding. But now, every tick feels like a countdown, each second falling closer to something inevitable. You whisper again, this time a little louder. "Hello?" Your voice sounds alien in the silence, thin and trembling. The man in the corner does not stir. His stillness is a kind of answer, though not the kind you want. You reach for the lamp on your nightstand. Your hand trembles as your fingers brush against its cool base. The part of you that still clings to reason says, if I switch it on, the corner will be empty. It's only a shadow. You'll see, and this will end. You flick the switch. The bulb flickers, dim and uncertain. Then the light steadies, spilling golden across the walls. You whip your gaze to the corner. Empty. The man is gone. Your heart slams against your ribs, but relief comes with it, thick and dizzying. Of course, just shadows, just exhaustion. You laugh, but it's a brittle sound, dry and nervous. You're losing it, you whisper to yourself. Just need sleep, that's all. You leave the lamp on. You tell yourself it's because you don't want to trip if you wake again. But the truth sits heavy inside you. You don't trust the dark. Not tonight. Eventually, your eyelids droop. You sink back into the pillow, your body surrendering to fatigue. The lamp's glow warms the room, and your thoughts scatter. Sleep drags you under. But not for long. You wake again hours later, groggy and disoriented. The lamp is off. You frown. In the darkness, you're certain you left it on. You reach out, flick the switch again. Nothing. The bulb is cold, dead. And then you hear it. A sound from the corner. Not movement, not breath. Something else. A low, deliberate scrape, as though nails drag slowly across the wall. Your heart stops. You grip the blanket, fingers clenching tight. You don't want to look. You don't want to see what waits there, but you can't help it. Your eyes find the corner. He's back. The man stands exactly where he was, tall and rigid. Only this time, his head is tilted, slightly, as though he knows you're watching. The scraping continues, steady and patient. You realize with horror it is not coming from the wall. It is coming from his hand. His long, pale fingers are tracing the plaster, slow and deliberate, as though carving invisible patterns. Your chest tightens. You want to scream, to leap from the bed and flee the room, but your body refuses. You are pinned, not by weight, but by fear so deep it roots you to the mattress. The clock ticks on, merciless. And then suddenly, the scraping stops. The man lowers his hand. His head tilts further, as if listening for something you cannot hear. The silence deepens. And then, footsteps. Slow. Heavy. One step forward. Then another. He is leaving the corner. He is walking toward you.
Chapter 3. The Footsteps. You clutch the blanket to your chest, though you know it offers no protection. The man takes another step, slow and deliberate. The sound of his shoe against the wooden floor is impossibly loud in the silence. You want to scream, to wake the world, but the sound dies in your throat. Your voice feels locked inside you, like something is holding it there. Move, you think desperately. Get up, run, but your body is heavy, pinned by invisible weights. The air itself seems thicker now, every breath dragging like you're inhaling water instead of air. Another step. Closer. Your eyes adjust to the dark just enough to glimpse more of him. His clothes are old, far too old. The fabric hangs in long, uneven folds, torn at the cuffs. His arms sway slightly with each step, but his head remains tilted, as though studying you. You whisper again, hoarse, trembling, "Please, don't." The words vanish into the silence. He doesn't answer. He stops just beyond the foot of your bed. Too close now. the shadow of his shape looms over you, stretching across the blanket. You force yourself to look at his face. For the first time, the shadows peel back enough for you to see. Eyes, sunken and hollow, staring without blinking. Skin that seems stretched too thin, as though it's been drained of color. His mouth doesn't move, but somehow you feel his attention, heavy and unrelenting, like a hand pressing down on your chest. The clock ticks. 1, 2, 3. And then, without warning, he steps back. Just one step. The pressure in the air lightens, and you gasp, sucking in a breath you didn't realize you'd been holding. He doesn't move again. He just stands at the foot of your bed, waiting. His head still tilted, his hollow eyes still locked on you. Minutes pass. Your throat aches from holding back sobs. Your vision blurs with tears you don't dare wipe away. Then, impossibly, sleep begins to tug at you again. It makes no sense. You are terrified, your heart thundering, but your heaviness in your body grows unbearable. Your eyes droop, fighting to stay open, but each blink lasts longer, drags deeper. You fight it, whispering, "No, no, no," under your breath, but it's useless. Your body betrays you. Your consciousness slips. The last thing you see before darkness swallows you is the man still standing at the foot of your bed, watching. Chapter 4. Morning. The sunlight wakes you. For a moment, you lie perfectly still, afraid of what you might see when you open your eyes. The memory of the night clings to you, vivid and sharp. The man in the corner, the footsteps, those hollow eyes. But when you force your eyes open, the room is empty. The corner is just a corner again, dust and shadow. The air is light, ordinary. The clock ticks with the same patient rhythm, but it feels different now, comforting almost. You sit up slowly, scanning the room. The chair is where it should be. Your clothes are piled carelessly on top of it. The floorboards hold no strange marks, no proof of footsteps. And yet, you glance at the wall. There, etched faintly into the plaster, are lines, scratches, thin, deliberate grooves just where the man's hand had dragged during the night. You rise, trembling, and step closer. Your fingertip brushes the marks. They are real, shallow but sharp enough to cut if you pressed harder. You stumble back, bile rising in your throat. Your phone lies on the nightstand. You snatch it up, desperate for a voice, for someone else to hear you and tell you you're not losing your mind. Your thumb hovers over your mother's number, your best friend's, even 911. But you stop. What would you say? There was a man in my room, but now he's gone? I think I dreamed him, except he scratched my wall? No one would believe you. You're not even sure you believe yourself. You lower the phone. The scratches remain. You tell yourself you'll deal with it later. You'll paint over it, forget it. For now, you just need to get through the day. Pretend everything is normal. But a thought follows you, no matter how much you try to push it away.
Chapter 5. The Scratches. You avoid the room for most of the morning. You shower, you dress, you make coffee, and you pretend that life is normal. The sunlight streaming through the windows helps with the lie. It fills the kitchen, paints the counters in warm gold, and for a time you can almost forget the dark figure that stood by your bed. Almost. But every time you glance toward the hallway, your thoughts return to the scratches on your bedroom wall. They pull at you like a splinter under skin, small but impossible to ignore. By noon, you give in. You step back into the room, coffee mug trembling in your hand. The bed is messy, the blanket tangled from your restless night. The corner is still just a corner, but the scratches are there. Pale, thin, deliberate. You trace them with your eyes, following the faint curves. They aren't random. They bend, cross, loop back. They form something. A shape maybe. A symbol. You set your mug down and kneel close, squinting. The marks aren't finished, more like the beginning of something being written. The strokes are too careful, too intentional to be just clawing. Your skin prickles. You grab your phone, snap a picture. The camera doesn't lie. The scratches show up clearly in the photo, stark against the wall. It's proof. Proof you didn't dream it. Proof you weren't imagining things. But instead of relief, the evidence makes you feel worse. The man was real. And if he was real, then where is he now? Your phone buzzes suddenly in your hand, making you jump. A message from your best friend, Clara. Coffee later? I'm dying to escape work. My treat. You stare at the message, then at the scratches. For a moment, you imagine yourself telling her everything, showing her the photo, watching her face pale as she realizes it's not a joke. But then you picture the other outcome, the laughter, the gentle teasing about your overactive imagination. You've always been the one who jumps at scary movies, who hates walking home alone at night. You pocket the phone without replying. You'll handle this yourself, somehow. But the wall waits, patient. The unfinished symbol seems to twist in the light, as though mocking you.
Chapter 6. The Voice. That night, you leave every light in the house on. The hallway, the living room, the kitchen, each bulb burns against the dark. Your bedroom lamp, too, with a fresh bulb screwed in tightly. You double-check the switch, tap the shade to be sure. It glows warmly. This time, you tell yourself, he won't come back. But as the hours stretch on and midnight creeps near, the heaviness in your body grows familiar. You lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, fighting sleep. Your eyelids twitch, begging to close. The clock ticks. Your head lolls once, twice, and then you hear it. A whisper. At first, you think it's the wind threading through the trees outside. But the sound grows clearer, closer. Look. The word brushes against your ear, too close, as if someone is leaning right beside you. You flinch, sit up sharply, but no one is there. The room is empty. The corner holds only shadow. Your heart races. You clutch the blanket, listening. Look. The whisper comes again, soft and coaxing, drawn out like a lullaby. You glance at the lamp, still burning bright. But the shadows in the corner seem deeper now, thicker somehow, as though light cannot reach them. Look. Your breath trembles. Against all sense, against every instinct screaming don't, you turn your head fully toward the corner. And he is there. The man, standing exactly as before, tall and stiff, his head tilted, his hollow eyes locked on you. The lamplight should banish him, reveal him fully, but no. He stands untouched by it, his face still half shrouded. The whisper doesn't come from your ears now. It comes from him. His lips do not move, but the word spills into your mind, curling through your thoughts. Look. Your eyes dart to the wall. New scratches have appeared, longer this time, deeper. The symbol is growing, its shape clearer now, circular, with sharp edges crossing through it like a broken wheel. You scramble backward on the bed. Stop, don't. The whisper fills your skull, soft and insistent. Look. And your eyes, helpless, obey. Chapter 7. Clara. You don't sleep the rest of the night. When the first gray light of dawn filters through the blinds, you're still sitting upright in bed, blanket wrapped tight around your body, staring at the corner. The man is gone. The scratches remain. By morning, exhaustion makes your hands shake. You need someone, anyone, to see what you've seen, to tell you it's real. Or to tell you've gone mad. Either way, you need another set of eyes. You text Clara. "Coffee, please, now." She replies almost instantly. "On my way, you sound like death. Spill everything when I get there." When she arrives, you almost hug her too tightly. Clara is all warmth and easy laughter, her blonde hair tied messily back, a bag of pastries dangling from one hand. She frowns when she sees your face. "Whoa, you look like you fought a bear in your sleep." "I didn't sleep," you admit. She raises a brow, following you inside. "Okay, what's going on?" You hesitate, then lead her down the hall to your room. The scratches wait on the wall, faint in the morning light, but unmistakable. Clara squints. You did this." "No!" You snatch your phone, shove the photo at her. "Look, it wasn't there before. Then last night I saw, I don't know, him." "Him?" She folds her arms, skeptical. I swallow. The words taste foolish on my tongue. "A man, in the corner, just standing there, watching me. And when I turned the light on, he was gone. But when I woke again, the scratches were there." Silence. Clara studies your face, her usual playfulness gone. "You're serious." "Dead serious." She glances back at the wall, then at the photo, then at you. Finally, she exhales. "Okay, say I believe you. What do you want me to do?" The question stuns you. You hadn't thought that far. All you know is that you don't want to be alone. "Just stay over tonight, please?" Clara sighs, but her lips twitch into a half-smile. "Fine, but if I wake up and some creep is standing in the corner, I'm setting the place on fire." For the first time all day, you almost laugh. Almost. Chapter 8. 2 in the room. That night, you and Clara make a fortress of the bedroom. 2 lamps burn, plus a string of fairy lights Clara insists on plugging in. She calls it vibes, but you know she's just trying to comfort you. The scratches on the wall are ignored, half hidden behind a stack of books she's pushed in front of them. "See?" she says, plopping onto the bed beside you. "No creepy shadows, no corner man, just us, carbs, and terrible TV." You smile weakly, but her confidence is contagious. For a few hours, the room feels almost normal again. You watch mindless sitcom reruns, eat half the pastries, and for the first time in days, you feel your shoulders loosen. Eventually, Clara yawns. "All right, freak, I'm passing out. If your corner boyfriend shows up, wake me." She curls up under the blankets, already half asleep. You leave the lights on. Midnight drags closer. You lie awake, heart thrumming with dread. The corner pulls at your gaze. Every time your eyes flick toward it, you expect to see him there, but the space remains empty. 1 a.m. passes. 2 a.m. You almost dare to believe it. Maybe Clara's presence is enough to keep him away. Maybe he only comes when you're alone. Then, a sound. The scrape. Your blood runs cold. Slowly, you turn your head. The scratches on the wall deepen right before your eyes. The books Clara stacked slide aside as though pushed by an invisible hand. Pale fingers emerge from the shadows, dragging deliberate lines into the plaster. You slap Clara's arm. "Wake up! Wake up!" She jerks upright, groggy. What is... Her voice dies. Her eyes lock on the corner. The man is there. For the first time, someone else sees him. "Oh my God!" Clara whispers. The man tilts his head watching her now, and in that moment, you realize something chilling. He doesn't just want you. He wants whoever looks. Chapter 9. The Denial. Clara doesn't scream. You almost wish she would. The sound might shatter the silence, break the impossible moment hanging in the air. Instead, she stares. Her eyes are wide, her lips trembling, but no sound comes out. She grips your wrist so tightly it hurts. "You see him," you whisper. "Tell me you see him." I... Her voice cracks. "I see him." The admission chills you more than anything else. It's real. All of it. The man doesn't move. He only stands in the corner, his head tilted in that same awful angle, his hollow gaze fixed on Clara now. His pale fingers rest against the wall, hovering just above the scratches. What is he?" Clara asks, her voice thin. "I don't know," you whisper. She squeezes your wrist harder. "Turn on more lights." All the lights are already on. As if to mock you, one of the fairy bulbs flickers and dies. Then another. The room dims, shadows stretching. "No, no, no!" Clara mutters, fumbling for her phone. She swipes at the screen, shining the flashlight toward the corner. The beam lands on the man. For a split second, his face is revealed more clearly than ever before. You see the thin, bloodless skin stretched across sharp bones, the hollow sockets that should hold eyes but instead contain darkness deeper than the night itself. His lips are sewn shut with fine black thread. Clara gasps, dropping the phone. The flashlight beam tumbles across the floor, sputtering out. When you look back at the corner, the man is gone. The wall is bare. Only the scratches remain. Chapter 10. The Research. Morning comes, though you barely sleep. Clara doesn't either. She paces the kitchen with a cup of untouched coffee, muttering to herself. "I saw him. I know I saw him. He was there." "I told you," you whisper. She stops pacing, finally looking at you. "Okay, so it's real. He's real. Then what the hell is he?" You rub your face, exhaustion grinding into your bones. "A ghost? A demon? I don't know." Clara slams her coffee cup down. "Well, we're not just gonna sit here waiting for him to show up again." She grabs her laptop, drops it on the table, and starts typing. Her fingers fly across the keys. "We need answers. Anything about, I don't know, shadow men, sleep paralysis demons, haunted houses, symbols carved into walls." You lean over her shoulder, watching the flood of search results fill the screen. Dozens of articles appear. Paranormal forums, grainy photos, stories of the Watcher, the Dark Man, the Corner Thing. None are identical, but all echo pieces of what you've seen. A man who comes at night, who stands in corners, who waits for you to notice him. And the symbol. Always the symbol. Over and over, crude sketches of the same shape appear on different sites. A circle broken by jagged lines, sometimes called the wheel, sometimes the veil. Accounts vary, but one theme repeats. Once the symbol is complete, he doesn't just watch, he takes. You shudder. Takes what? Clara scrolls, silent. Finally, she whispers, "People." The word hangs heavy between you. You glance toward the hallway, toward the scratches on your bedroom wall. The symbol is not finished yet, but it will be. Chapter 11. The Warning. Clara insists on staying another night. "This isn't just your problem anymore," she says, arms folded tight. "I saw him. He looked at me. Whatever this thing is, it's after both of us now." You want to argue, to tell her to leave before it's too late, but selfishness roots your tongue. The idea of another night alone with him is unbearable. So, you nod. That evening, the two of you drag a mattress into the living room.
as far from the scratched wall as possible. Clara sets up her laptop again, playing music to keep the silence at bay. You order food you don't touch. By midnight, exhaustion drapes over both of you. Clara dozes first, curled in a blanket. You lie awake, eyes on the far corner of the living room. It's empty. Until it isn't. He stands there, tall, still, head tilted, always tilted. Your body stiffens. You whisper, barely a breath, "Clara!" She stirs, groggy. "What?" "Don't look." But she does, and when her gaze meets the corner, the whisper returns, not just in your head now, but echoing faintly through the room. "Look." The lamp on the end table flickers once, twice, goes dark. The man lifts his hand, dragging fingers along the wall. The scratches are there instantly, as if burned into the plaster. More lines, more of the broken circle. Clara scrambles upright, clutching your arm. "He's finishing it," she gasps. You don't answer, because even as terror floods your chest, you know she's right. The symbol is almost half complete now. And with each line, you feel it, not just fear, but pressure, as though the walls are leaning in, the air thinning, the house itself bending towards something inevitable. "Look." The whisper gnaws at your skull. Clara clamps her hands over her ears, rocking back and forth. "Make it stop! Make it stop!" And then, just as it began, the man vanishes. The light flickers back to life. The room is empty again. But the scratches remain. Chapter 12. The Decision. Morning finds you both ragged. Clara's hands shake as she scrolls her laptop. Her face is pale, lips chapped. "We can't stay here." "Where would we go?" you mutter. "A hotel. Anywhere." You glance toward the living room wall. What if he follows? The question hangs between you. Neither of you wants to say it, but you both know he's not tied to the house. He's tied to you. Clara snaps the laptop shut. "Then we fight back." You stare at her. "How?" "Research, rituals, whatever it takes." Her eyes burn with determination, but you see the fear beneath it. He wants that symbol finished, right? Then we stop him before he does. It sounds impossible, but the alternative is worse. By noon, you're both buried in old forums, scanned PDFs of forgotten folklore, desperate whispers from strangers who claim to have seen the same thing. Most are nonsense, but patterns emerge. Salt lines, mirrors, burned offerings, words meant to banish. One post catches Clara's eye. A grainy photo shows the broken circle symbol carved into stone. Beneath it, a scrawl of text. "The Watcher writes to open the way. Stop his hand, or the door is made." "Open the way?" Clara murmurs. The phrase sinks into you like ice. A door. To where? To what? That night, you scatter salt across the threshold of every door, every window. Clara sets mirrors at angles in each corner, facing outward. She mutters words she found online, prayers stitched together from half a dozen sources. When you crawl into bed, surrounded by light and salt and mirrors, you almost believe you've done enough. But in your chest, dread whispers otherwise. The Watcher is patient. The symbol waits. And the night is coming. Chapter 13. Salt and Mirrors. The house smells faintly of salt. Every windowsill, every doorway, every crack in the floor has been lined. You and Clara step carefully, mindful not to disturb the powder. "Feels like we're trying to trap a cockroach," Clara mutters, though her voice wavers. The mirrors gleam in the corners, propped at angles, catching reflections of reflections. They make the rooms look larger than they are, fragmented and strange. Wherever you turn, you see yourself watching yourself, endless pairs of eyes. Clara insists it will help. If he thrives on shadows, mirrors scatter them. They confuse him. Salt seals him out. You nod, but doubt clings to you. The watcher has never been stopped by locked doors or bright lights. Why should Salt be any different? Still, that night, you both feel a sliver of hope. You fall asleep in the living room, backs pressed together, lamps blazing. For the first time in days, you dream. But the dream is wrong. You're standing in your bedroom. The corners are darker than they should be, shadows pooling like spilled ink. The unfinished symbol glows faintly on the wall, the lines pulsing like veins. You hear footsteps behind you. You don't turn. You don't need to. Look! When you wake, your throat aches from screaming. Beside you, Clara gasps awake at the same time. Her eyes are wide, her face pale. I saw him, she whispers. In my dream, he was inside. You both stare at the salt lines. They are undisturbed, pristine. The mirrors stand untouched, the lamps glow steadily. And yet, somehow, he found a way in.
Chapter 14. The Second Symbol. The next morning, Clara scours the internet like a woman possessed. Salt and mirrors didn't work. Okay, fine. We'll try something else. Fire, iron, holy water. I don't care. You pace behind her, restless. The house feels smaller every hour. The corners darker. The air heavier. Then Clara freezes. Oh God! You lean over her shoulder. On the laptop screen is another forum post buried deep in an archive. The attached image makes your stomach lurch. It's the same broken circle symbol, but not carved into a wall, not etched into wood, burned into flesh. A photograph of an arm, pale and thin, with the blackened lines seared deep. The caption beneath it reads, "Once he marks you, you are his." Your hand shakes as you pull back your sleeve. Your skin looks normal, untouched, but when Clara pushes back her own sleeve, a faint line, thin and gray, runs across her forearm. It curves, exactly like the scratches on the wall. "No!" Clara whispers. She scratches at it desperately, as though she could erase it. The mark does not fade. You grab her wrist. "Stop! You'll hurt yourself." Her breath shudders. He's not just finishing it on the wall. He's finishing it on us. The realization crashes down like ice. The scratches in the plaster aren't the only symbol. You are the other. And once both are complete, the door opens. Chapter 15. The Way Opens. Night falls like a suffocating blanket. You and Clara sit on the living room floor, surrounded by salt, mirrors, and candles that flicker despite the absence of wind. The faint lines on her arm and yours pulse almost imperceptibly, like the symbol itself is alive. Neither of you speaks. The air is heavy, thick with anticipation. Then it comes, the whisper. Soft, insistent, curling around your skull. Look. You look at Clara. Her eyes are wide, shimmering with fear and tears. She wants to look away, but her body trembles as if some invisible force is drawing her gaze toward the corner. You try to push her back, to break the connection, but the power holding you both is stronger than any salt, stronger than mirrors, stronger than your combined will. The shadow in the corner begins to take shape. Taller, wider, head tilted, fingers dragging through the air, etching lines in invisible space that echo the symbol's design. Your arms ache as the lines sear into your skin. Clara cries out as the mark on her forearm deepens, burning faintly. "Stop it!" you scream, your voice raw, trembling. "It's not yours to finish." The watcher tilts his head. No face, only hollow eyes.
No lips, yet the whisper fills the room in unison. Look. Your eyes obey, no matter how hard you fight. The room spins. Light bends unnaturally. Shadows twist, pooling into angles that shouldn't exist. You feel the walls stretch, the ceiling press down. The last line of the symbol is drawn, on the plaster, on your skin, in the air itself. And the world shudders. The watcher steps forward. You feel his presence inside your mind, inside your bones. The way is opening. Clara screams beside you. You reach for her, but it is too late. The last thing you see before darkness swallows you is the man's hollow gaze, closer than ever, staring through the unfinished boundaries of your world. And the whispers continue. Look. The house is silent once more, save for the faint, impossible ticking of a clock that should not exist. The corner waits, always waiting.
Did you enjoy that short story? I hope you found it spooky. Now, time for another tale.
Chapter 1. Arrival. The house stood at the edge of the small town, its silhouette hunched against the gray sky like a tired old sentinel. Its paint was faded, streaked with years of rain, and the windows were clouded with grime. Yet something about it drew you in, a quiet promise of solitude. You parked the car at the gravel driveway, the tires crunching underfoot, and stepped out, taking in the scent of wet leaves and decaying wood. This place, you muttered to yourself, squinting up at the crooked roofline. It's perfect. The front door was heavy and groaned like it hadn't been opened in years. Your keys rattled as you found the lock, and with a reluctant push, the door gave way. Dust danced in the sunlight, slanting through the cracks in the blinds. The air smelled faintly of mildew, of old paper, of something almost metallic you couldn't place. You dropped your bag near the entrance and began exploring. Each room had its own personality. The living room had a fireplace with blackened bricks, a few old chairs that sagged as if bearing memories. The wallpaper was peeling, revealing layers of past paint in muted blues and yellows. Footsteps echoed oddly, and you wondered if the floorboards were uneven or if the echo was different somehow. "This is going to be my little sanctuary," you said aloud, as if speaking to the house itself. A place to think, to write. The kitchen smelled of rust and dampness. Cabinets creaked when you opened them, and you found a few old utensils coated in dust. A small dining table stood in the center, its surface scarred with rings of long-forgotten mugs. You ran your hand along it, the wood cool under your fingers, and for a moment you thought you heard a soft exhale behind you. Turning sharply, there was nothing, just the window letting in the wind, rattling the leaves outside. You shivered, more from anticipation than fear. "I'm alone," you said, forcing yourself to smile. "It's just an old house. Nothing more." Yet, as the darkness settled, a subtle sensation pricked at the edge of your awareness. The house wasn't quite silent. Not entirely. Somewhere deep within its walls, there seemed to be a presence, patient and still. And as the darkness settled, you swore you heard a faintest whisper, barely audible, as if carried on the wind through the cracks of the old siding. "Hello."
Chapter 2. The First Night. Night fell quickly, the sky turning a bruised purple, then deep black. The wind outside had grown sharper, rattling the loose shutters and sending dry leaves tumbling across the driveway. You sat on the edge of the bed in the main bedroom, a cup of tea warming your hands, trying to shake the lingering unease from the day. "I'm just tired," you murmured, forcing a smile. "Old house, new place, nerves." The shadows in the room were long and strange, cast by the weak glow of a single lamp. They seemed ordinary at first, stretching across the walls and ceiling, but then you noticed the corners. Some shapes didn't belong. The shadows curved oddly, curling where no object existed to cast them. You blinked, rubbed your eyes, but they didn't vanish. A soft sound, almost imperceptible, drew your attention. At first, you thought it was the wind, a faint, rhythmic sigh through the old beams. Then you heard it clearly. "Hello." Your heart skipped. You froze, gripping the mug tighter. The voice was soft, like a breath just behind your ear, yet the room was empty. You swallowed hard, trying to convince yourself it was your imagination. "Probably just the wind," you said aloud, though your voice sounded unconvincing even to your own ears. You stood and walked toward the door, checking the hallway. The floorboards groaned beneath your weight, echoing far too loudly. The hallway was empty. The darkness beyond the bedroom doors seemed deeper, denser, almost swallowing the faint glow of the lamp. You exhaled shakily and returned to the bed. Sitting back down, you opened your laptop, hoping the hum and light would keep the unease at bay. You tried to focus on a blank document, typing a few notes about the house, the floors, the peeling wallpaper. But every few minutes, a soft creak made you look up. Floorboards that shouldn't have moved, or the sound of a door gently swinging open somewhere upstairs. Then a whisper again, closer this time. "I'm watching." Your blood ran cold. You spun around, but the room was still empty. You noticed the shadows again, darker now, stretching toward you in slow, deliberate movements. They weren't cast by the lamp or the moon. They seemed to pulse, reaching for the edges of the room. Heart hammering, you stood and switched on every light. Some flickered, but most held, cutting the shadows into ragged fragments. You called out, your voice trembling. Is anyone there? Hello?" Silence answered, then a soft, mocking sigh drifting through the air like smoke. "Not anyone, just me." You grabbed a notebook from the bedside table, scribbling down the words, trying to ground yourself in reality. "Maybe if I write it, I can prove I'm not losing my mind," you thought. Hours passed in a haze of nervous pacing and whispers that never fully formed into words, but always hovered at the edge of hearing. You finally curled under the blankets, lights blazing, pretending to sleep. The shadows lingered in the corners, patient and still. Somewhere deep within the house, behind the walls, something watched, waiting. And as sleep finally tugged at your eyelids, a final whisper brushed your ear. "Good night. I'll see you soon." Chapter 3. The Shadows. Morning came with a gray, lifeless light spilling through the blinds. You woke stiff and tense, the memory of whispers lingering at the edge of your mind. The bed felt different, heavier somehow, as if something had lain there beside you. You shook it off, telling yourself it was just a dream. But the evidence in the house suggested otherwise. The bedroom door, which you were certain you had closed the night before, was ajar. The chair near the desk, positioned neatly in the corner, was now slightly turned. And on the floor, a small pile of dust had shifted, forming a faint line leading toward the hallway. "Okay, I'm imagining things," you muttered aloud, pacing. "It's an old house. Dust moves." You decided to document everything, pulling out the notebook from the bedside table. The pen scratched across the page as you wrote, "Shadows move, whispers at night, floorboards creak when no one is walking." The act of writing helped, at least for a moment, but as you reached the middle of the page, a subtle movement in the corner of your eye froze you. The shadow near the far wall had shifted. It wasn't tied to the lamp or window. It elongated, curling in a way that defied logic. It felt aware. "What are you?" you whispered, your voice trembling. No answer, just the faintest rustle, like fabric brushing against floorboards. You took a cautious step toward the wall, and the shadow recoiled, then spread along the baseboard, reaching toward the hallway. By afternoon, you had explored every room again, checking for drafts, for sunlight angles, for any logical explanation. There was none. Every time you turned your back, the shadows subtly changed. An arm of darkness stretching slightly farther, curling upward as if studying you. "What are you?" you whispered, your voice trembling. No answer. Just the faintest rustle, like fabric brushing against floorboards. You took a cautious step toward the wall, and the shadow recoiled, then spread along the baseboard, reaching toward the hallway. By afternoon, you had explored every room again, checking for drafts, for sunlight angles, for any logical explanation. There was none. Every time you turned your back, the shadows subtly changed. An arm of darkness stretching slightly farther, curling upward as if studying you. You called a friend, hoping to hear a rational voice. "I swear it's the house," you said, pacing in front of the window. I don't know. I feel like someone's watching me." On the other end, your friend chuckled nervously. "Watching you? It's a house, not a horror movie. Maybe you're just tired." "Maybe," you admitted, though your stomach nodded. "But I think it's more than that." By evening, the atmosphere shifted. The lamp in the living room flickered wildly, then went out, leaving the space drenched in shadows. The air grew colder, carrying the faint metallic scent you hadn't noticed before. You shivered, pulling your sweater tighter. Then came a sound, a soft, deliberate tap on the wall behind you. You froze. 1, 2, 3 taps, slow and deliberate. You spun, but there was no one, only the shadows stretching toward you, pulsing faintly, as if breathing. You spoke aloud, trying to ground yourself. "I'm not afraid. I know you're here, but I won't let you scare me." A whisper followed, almost intimately, chilling in its intimacy. "You don't have a choice." Your hands shook as you wrote Chapter 4, The Wait. The next morning, sunlight seemed thin and weak, barely warming the wooden floors. You awoke with a start, the blankets tangled around your legs, and an odd heaviness pressed against your chest. For a moment, you thought it was just a nightmare, a lingering shadow of sleep, but the pressure remained. Sitting up, you glanced around the room. Nothing moved. The air smelled faintly of iron, like blood or wet soil. You shivered and swung your legs over the edge of the bed. The weight lifted as soon as you touched the floor, leaving a hollow emptiness behind. "Okay," you muttered, rubbing your eyes. "That wasn't real." But the evidence told a different story. On the bedside table, the notebook had flipped open on its own. The pen was lying nearby, as if it had been dropped mid-sentence. The words you had written last night, "I'll wait, always," were still scrawled in hurried letters. And beneath them, fresh words appeared, uneven and jagged. I never left. Your heart leapt. You scanned the room, half expecting someone or something to emerge from the shadows. The air was still, but thick, heavy, almost tactile. Later, while making tea in the kitchen, you felt it again. A cold draft brushed your neck, though every window and door was closed. You spun around. The room was empty, but the shadows pooled unnaturally in the corners, stretching along the floor as if seeking you. "Stop it," you whispered, voice trembling. "I know you're here. I don't know what you are, but I can't let you." A faint, almost playful sigh cut you off. "Let me what?" The sound made the hair on your arms rise. It wasn't loud, but it carried weight, presence, intent. You gripped the counter, knuckles white, staring into the corner of the room where the shadows seemed darkest. That night, sleep became a battle. You pulled every blanket around yourself, propping pillows as barriers. The house groaned around you, floorboards creaking in impossible patterns. And then the weight returned, pressing on the bed beside you, cold and suffocating. You tried to speak, reasoning aloud. "I won't give you power over me. You don't exist." But the whisper came, low and deliberate, almost against your ear. "I exist because you see me." Your breath caught. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet something rooted you in place. The air was thick, almost liquid, pressing against your skin. You felt a faint brush against your arm, a touch soft, deliberate, ice cold, and you jerked away. The shadows on the walls pulsed in response, like they were alive, watching, learning. Hours passed in mere silence. Every time you tried to close your eyes, you felt it shift beside you, an invisible presence.
Chapter 5. The Mirror. By the 5th day, the house no longer felt empty. It felt aware. Each step you took echoed strangely, as if following its own rhythm, as if the floorboards themselves were observing. You tried to rationalize it. Old houses are quirky. Uneven floors, drafts, settling beams. Nothing more. But rational thought was growing fragile. Shadows moved differently now, curling and stretching even in broad daylight. The air felt heavier near certain corners, the faint metallic scent lingering. And then you noticed it, the mirror in the upstairs bedroom. It hadn't been cracked when you arrived, or at least you thought it hadn't. But now a thin line ran through its surface, jagged like a fault in the earth. You stepped closer, brushing your fingers against the cold glass. The reflection stared back at you, but something was off. Your movements lagged slightly, almost imperceptibly, like the reflection had a moment of its own. You raised your hand, and the image mimicked you too slowly. A shiver ran down your spine. Okay, that's just my imagination. Lag, light, fatigue. Yet as you turned away, you caught it again. The reflection lingered a moment longer than it should have, watching. And then, just when you thought it was gone, it smiled. Not you. Something else. You stumbled back, heart hammering, and the shadows in the room seemed to twist toward the mirror. For a terrifying instant, it felt as if the dark shapes were feeding from the reflection, growing heavier, darker, more substantial. That night, you couldn't sleep in the bedroom with the mirror. You carried a mattress downstairs, dragging it into the living room, surrounded by lamps. The shadows were still there, pooling in the corners, moving with a sinister fluidity, but the bright lights kept them fragmented, weak. Even so, the whispers didn't stop. You can't hide. You see me. I see you. You tried calling a friend again, voice trembling. I think something's wrong with the house, with me. The shadows, they move, and the mirror... There was a pause on the other end.
"Are you sure you're okay?" your friend asked cautiously. "Maybe take a day off, get some sleep. Stress?" "No," you interrupted, voice rising. "It's not stress. I don't know what it is, but it's real. The mirror, my reflection changes. It watches me. The line went dead, static, and then silence. You dropped the phone, staring into the darkness around the living room. Chapter 6. The Voice Knows. By the sixth night, exhaustion had settled into your bones. Every muscle ached from pacing, from sleepless hours, from the tension of being watched. You had tried to rationalize, tried to flee, tried to call a friend, but the presence was patient. It had no need to rush. It could wait. You were curled on the mattress in the living room, lights dim but flickering with anxiety, notebook open. Your pen scratched furiously across the pages. Observations, sketches of shadows, diagrams of the mirror and its distortions. Yet, even as you wrote, a subtle voice threaded through the quiet, soft enough to be mistaken for your own thoughts. "You're tired. You shouldn't fight me." You froze, hands suspended above the paper. That wasn't your thought. It was deliberate, external, coaxing. Your stomach nodded. "No, you're not real." "I am," it replied, faint and almost gentle. "I've always been here. I know you. I see you." Your breath caught. You thought back to small moments over the past week, the shifted dust, the altered shadows, the cold weight on the bed, and realized with a jolt that it had observed you from the very first night. Every habit, every routine, every movement. The air thickened, heavy and moist, pressing against your skin. The shadows on the walls pulsed in rhythm with your heartbeat. You tried to reason. "It's learning from me, yes, but it can't leave the house." Then the whispers became suggestions. "Stand. Go to the upstairs bedroom. Look in the mirror." A surge of panic coursed through you. The idea was horrifying, but strangely compelling. You shook your head, whispering aloud, "No, I won't. I can't." "You can," it said, sharper this time. "You want to, don't you?" The shadows stirred in response, writhing along the walls, reaching, pulsing. Your hands shook violently. You grabbed a chair and pressed it against the doorway to the stairs, as if a piece of furniture could keep something that didn't exist out. Hours passed. You tried to sleep, tried to ignore it, tried to convince yourself it was just a hallucination born of isolation. But the voice was relentless, threading into your mind, repeating your own private thoughts before you had spoken them. "You're afraid. I know you're afraid, but afraid is useful. Afraid keeps you here. Afraid keeps me here." You whispered to yourself, voice trembling, "Stop. I won't." The shadows in the corner of the living room thickened, folding in on themselves, coalescing into a vaguely human shape. Your heart pounded. It was not fully formed, no, not yet, but it mirrored your posture, your tension, your fear. "I know you," it breathed. "Every thought, every dream. You cannot hide, you cannot escape." You pressed your hands over your ears, shaking, whispering into the dark, into the air that now felt solid. "I won't let you control me. I won't." The learning. By the seventh day, the house had become a maze of unease. Each room seemed subtly different from the last time you'd been there. Objects were never exactly where you remembered leaving them. Books turned face down. Chairs slightly angled. Curtains swaying when no draft existed. The shadows were no longer just in corners. They slithered along walls, stretched across ceilings, and occasionally pooled in the middle of the floor like dark liquid.
You began to realize something terrifying. The house was learning. It observed your habits, your fears, your attempts to escape. Each night it tested you. Every morning, small changes in the environment reminded you of its presence. The first overt act came during breakfast. You poured coffee into a mug and set it down on the table. When you turned back, it had slid toward the center of the table, as if nudged by unseen fingers. A chill ran down your spine. "No, not real," you muttered, but your voice lacked conviction. Later, you tried to distract yourself by cleaning, moving boxes, anything to reclaim a sense of control. But as you carried a box upstairs, you glimpsed a shadow dart across the wall behind you, faster than a blink. The hairs on your arms stood on end. It wasn't just watching now, it was practicing. You realized that the longer you stayed, the more skilled it became at predicting your movements, anticipating your reactions. The whispers had evolved too. They no longer just commented or suggested, they taunted, mimicked, and tested. "Careful," it whispered one night as you climbed the stairs. "Slow. Don't drop it. Don't look behind you." Your stomach twisted. You spun around. Nothing. But the floorboards creaked in a pattern you hadn't made. The shadows writhed at the edge of your vision, mocking, studying. By afternoon, you had taken to writing everything down, desperate to anchor yourself. Notes, sketches, diagrams, all meant to prove that something unnatural was unfolding. Yet even as you scribbled furiously, you felt its attention, intangible and suffocating. The first near physical encounter came at night. You were climbing into bed when the blankets shifted violently, as if something underneath was rolling. You yelped and threw them off. The air had grown cold, colder than ever before, and a faint pressure pressed against your legs, stopping just short of touch. "Almost," whispered the voice, softer than before, yet saturated with expectation. "So close. Keep still. Don't resist." You bolted upright, heart hammering. The shadows along the walls throbbed, folding inward, as if alive. They had learned the rhythm of your fear, the timing of your breaths, the hesitation in your movements. And they had begun to manipulate your environment with precision. A window that had been closed swung open on its own. A chair that had been in the corner now blocked the bedroom door. Small things, subtle things, each designed to remind you that the house, and whatever lived within it, was in command. You realized with a sickening clarity, resistance only sharpened its focus. Fear fed it. Observation empowered it. And every attempt at normalcy.
Chapter 8. The Isolation. By the 8th day, the boundaries between the house and the outside world had begun to blur. You had stopped answering calls from friends. Messages went unread. Even the thought of leaving felt wrong, as if the house itself tightened around you, whispering insistently that there was nowhere safe beyond its walls. The shadows had grown bolder. They no longer confined themselves to corners or walls. Sometimes, in the corner of your eye, you would see them pooling at the foot of the stairs or near the doorway, waiting, patient, observant. They knew your habits, followed your gaze, anticipated your steps. The whispers had become constant companions. They spoke in tones you recognized, your voice, the voice of your mother, your own inner thoughts, blurring the lines between memory and reality. "Don't go outside. They can't protect you. You belong here." You shook your head, pressing your hands against your ears. The voice mimicked your protest. "No. Yes. Maybe. You don't know. I know." Attempts to leave the house became exercises in futility. The front door that had been heavy now seemed to resist your hands, as if the house itself had gained weight. Windows refused to budge, as though welded shut. Even the gravel driveway outside seemed miles away, elongated by some invisible force, twisting distances and angles until the world beyond the walls felt impossibly far. Sleep became fragmented and hallucinatory. Dreams bled into waking moments. In one moment you were climbing stairs that led to rooms you didn't recognize. In another, the shadows reached through the floorboards, brushing your feet, curling around your ankles. You began talking to yourself, arguing with the whispers, pleading with the house. I don't belong here. You can't have me. The reply came almost immediately, soft, teasing, omnipresent. You are mine. Even if you close your eyes, even if you run, even if you scream, you cannot leave. You will belong. You will see. You will remember. And as you pressed your face into your knees, the shadows leaned closer, stretching, waiting, patient. Outside, the world continued, oblivious. Inside, you were alone, completely. Chapter 9. The First Contact. The night was darker than usual, heavy with the smell of damp wood and something metallic you couldn't place. The wind outside had fallen silent, leaving the house unnervingly still. You sat on the mattress in the living room, notebook open, pen trembling in your hand, trying to make sense of the last 8 days. The shadows had grown bold, moving with a purpose that no longer felt accidental. They pooled in corners, stretched along walls, and occasionally reached toward the center of the floor, where you sat, frozen and aware of every breath. Then it happened. A sudden pressure against your shoulder, cold and firm, caused you to gasp and spin around. Nothing was there. But the shadows responded. One of them lifted from the corner, twisting into a vaguely humanoid shape. It hovered in the periphery of the lamplight, its form hazy, but undeniably watching. "Do not be afraid," it whispered, soft but certain, almost intimate. You froze, gripping the edge of the mattress. What do you want?" The shadow pulsed, writhing slowly. "I want you to see me, to remember." A faint breeze brushed across your skin, though every window was closed. You flinched as something unseen traced a finger along your arm. The air smelled of iron, of soil, of something you couldn't name, and it pressed closer, almost tangible. "I've waited," it said, voice threading into your thoughts. "Every night, every hour, watching, learning. I am patient." You stammered, "Why me? Why this house?" "Because you can see me. Because you feel me. Because you fear me." It pulsed, stretching, and the shadows around the room rippled like liquid. The floorboards beneath you seemed to shift imperceptibly, tilting your balance. You stumbled, catching yourself on the mattress. "Do not resist," it whispered. "Resistance is unnecessary." The air grew colder, and the pressure increased. You could feel the weight of its presence pressing into your chest, wrapping around your limbs, testing the boundaries of your skin. It was not violent, yet, but it was deliberate, a patient study of your reactions. I won't, but the shadows responded instantly. One dark limb of shadow reached toward the notebook, flipping it open. The pen lifted from the page as if guided by invisible fingers. Words appeared in uneven, jagged letters. You belong. You always have. A shiver ran through you. The shadows swirled, the lamp flickered, and for the first time, the entity's form seemed almost complete, humanoid, yet featureless, hovering mere inches from...
Chapter 10. The dreams begin. That night, sleep arrived reluctantly, heavy with dread and anticipation. The shadows in the corners seemed thicker, darker, pulsing gently as if in rhythm with your heartbeat. You tried to lie still beneath the blankets, clutching your notebook like a talisman against the entity that had made its presence undeniable. And then, as your eyes closed, the world shifted. You were no longer in the living room. The walls had melted into darkness, the floor beneath your feet soft and uneven, like walking on damp moss. Shadows stretched impossibly long, curling toward you from every direction. A voice whispered, familiar and intimate, threading through your thoughts. Welcome again. Sleep and see me. Your stomach twisted. You tried to move, but your limbs felt heavy, unresponsive. The shadows pulsed, writhing along the floor, walls, and ceiling, and the air smelled metallic, earthy, alive. You wanted to scream, but your voice did not emerge. Then the dream, or was it, shifted. You were standing at the top of the staircase looking down into the living room. The room was empty. Yet from the corners, shadows began to pool, rising slowly, forming vague shapes, indistinct, human-like, watching, waiting. You felt them learning you again, observing every hesitation, every blink, every breath. Do not resist, the whisper said, softer now, almost coaxing. I am patient. I know you. I see you. Even when you close your eyes. A sense of vertigo gripped you. You stumbled down the stairs, and the shadows followed, stretching, folding, reaching. The floorboards beneath your feet were uneven, shifting subtly with each step, making the descent feel endless. The walls seemed to breathe, pulsing in time with your heartbeat. And then the mirror appeared. It was not the mirror upstairs, but a new one, massive, filling the room with its cracked reflection. Your own image stared back, but behind you, the shadows coalesced into a humanoid figure, featureless, yet unmistakably there. Its presence pressed into your mind, speaking without words. Remember me. You belong to me. You always have. You cannot leave. You turned, trying to flee, but the shadows stretched and tangled around your legs, binding you to the spot. Panic surged, yet a strange compulsion urged you to look into the mirror. Reluctantly, you did. The reflection was not just you, it was the entity itself, layered over your features, a distorted double with pulsing darkness where eyes should be. The whispers became a chorus, repeating thoughts you hadn't spoken, desires you hadn't admitted even to yourself. You see me now. You will see me again. Sleep, and you will belong. You awoke with a gasp. Drenched in sweat, the notebook still clutched in trembling hands. Sunlight streamed weakly through the blinds, but the room felt heavier than ever. The shadows in the corners pulsed faintly, patient, waiting. And you realized with a chill that the entity had not just visited your waking hours. It had begun to claim your dreams, threading its presence into sleep itself. Nightfall no longer promised rest. It promised confrontation, subtle
and inescapable within the very landscape of your mind. You shivered beneath the blankets, understanding the truth with a sinking certainty. The house, the shadows, the voice, they were no longer confined to walls and floors. They were inside you, shaping your thoughts, your fears, and your dreams. Sleep, it whispered once more, almost tenderly. Sleep and remember, I will wait.
Chapter 11. Nightmares Made Real. By the 11th night, sleep had become a battleground. Your eyelids drooped with exhaustion, but each attempt at rest was met with the same suffocating presence. The shadows in the corners of the living room seemed to pulse with anticipation, stretching subtly whenever you moved, as if aware of your thoughts. That night, when you finally closed your eyes, the dream arrived immediately. You were no longer in the living room, nor in any room you recognized. Instead, you stood in an endless hallway, the walls dark and slick, the floor uneven and wet beneath your bare feet. A dim, greenish light emanated from nowhere, illuminating nothing clearly, but the sense of being watched was absolute. From the far end, shapes emerged, humanoid, featureless, shadows coalescing with purpose. They glided silently, moving closer, folding and twisting as if alive. One reached toward you, tendrils of darkness brushing your shoulders, cold and suffocating. "Do you remember me?" the voice whispered, threading directly into your mind. "Do you see me now?" You tried to run, but the floor buckled, stretching unnaturally, slowing your steps. Every shadow mirrored your movements, learning, anticipating, taunting. Panic surged through you as the hallway seemed endless. And then the mirror appeared, tall, cracked, stretching across the width of the hall. You stared into it. The reflection was not you. It was yourself, distorted and overlaid with the entity's features, shadows writhing beneath your skin. It reached through the glass, and a tendril of darkness brushed your cheek, real, tangible, even in the dream. You bolted upright in the mattress, drenched in sweat, gasping for air. Sunlight peeked through the blinds, but the shadows in the corners pulsed subtly, patiently, as if learning your response. The notebook trembled in your hands, and when you opened it, new words had appeared. You cannot escape, not in dreams, not in waking. I am everywhere you look. I am patient. I am learning. By day, the hallucinations persisted. Shadows shifted unnaturally in the hallway outside your bedroom. The cracked mirror upstairs reflected subtle movements that weren't yours. Small objects moved on their own. A chair that had been pushed against the wall now sat in the center of the room. A book lay open, with pages rearranged into sentences you didn't recognize. You spoke aloud to the empty house, your voice shaking. "This isn't real. None of this is real." The whisper returned instantly, soft and intimate. "It is as real as you allow. You see me now. You feel me. You are mine, and you will remember." By evening, you had abandoned the living room mattress and fled to the kitchen, barricading yourself against shadows that moved with more confidence now. Sleep was no longer optional. The body demanded it, but the entity had begun infiltrating even the briefest moments of rest. Every blink, every moment of distraction became an opportunity for it to test you, to mold you, to feed on fear. And as night fell, you realized the cruelest truth.
Chapter 12. The First Breaking. By the 12th day, exhaustion had become permanent, a living weight pressing into your bones. Sleep was no longer restorative. It was a battleground, a trap where shadows and whispers toyed with your mind. Every night, the entity infiltrated your dreams, each encounter more vivid, more intimate, more terrifying. During the day, reality itself seemed to bend. Shadows shifted unnaturally, stretching and folding, defying the light. Floorboards groaned under no weight. Mirrors reflected subtle distortions, your own movements slightly delayed, as if the reflection had a mind of its own. Objects moved silently, repositioned themselves, small but deliberate. You began to doubt everything. What was real? What was imagined? What belonged to you? You started talking aloud constantly, a futile attempt to anchor yourself. I am awake. This is real. I am awake. I am awake. The shadows pulsed in response, coiling at the corners of your vision. The voice came, threading directly into your thoughts. No, you are asleep. You have always been asleep. You cannot see me yet, but you will. You always will. Panic gripped you. You stumbled through the rooms, notebook in hand, scribbling observations frantically. Each word, each line was meant to ground you, but the entity had begun altering even that. Pages rearranged themselves overnight. Sentences twisted into new meanings. Words you hadn't written appeared. Breaking is good. Resistance is foolish. You belong. You slammed the notebook shut. The shadows thickened, swirling around the corners of the room, edges indistinct but moving with intent. You pressed your back against the wall, shaking, whispering, I am not yours. You cannot have me. You already are. It whispered, soft, intimate, omnipresent. You will remember. You will belong. You will see. The first direct physical contact occurred that night. You awoke to a pressure against your chest, not subtle this time, firm and undeniable. Cold fingers brushed your arms and shoulders. You struggled, screamed silently, but the air seemed viscous, wrapping around you, binding your movements. The shadows leaned closer, coalescing into a form vaguely humanoid, tall and featureless. Its presence filled the room, pressing into your mind, threading through your thoughts, eroding the fragile boundary between self and entity. Breaking is necessary. Resistance only sharpens understanding. Sleep, and you will belong, it whispered. Your mind faltered, thoughts spinning. Hours, or was it minutes, passed in a haze of terror, uncertainty, and fatigue. When dawn finally crept weakly through the blinds, you were trembling uncontrollably, notebook clutched to your chest, body shaking with exhaustion and fear. The house had changed. The shadows were more confident, more fluid, more assertive. The entity had made contact, and it had begun to assert dominance over your waking life as well as your dreams. You understood with a bone-deep certainty. You were beginning to break, and once the breaking was complete, there would be no turning back. Remember, the whisper said, fading as the first weak light filled the room. You are mine, always mine.
Chapter 13. The Second Night. By the 13th night, the house felt alive in every sense. Every creak of the floorboards, every subtle draft, every flicker of shadow was deliberate. The entity was no longer content to linger in corners.
It now manipulated the environment to keep you in a constant state of unease. You sat on the mattress in the living room, trembling, notebook open, words jumbled across the pages, shadows move independently, mirrors reflect, not me. Sleep is no longer safe. You wrote frantically, hoping that documentation could preserve a shred of sanity. Then the whispers began again, threading into your thoughts before you even realized you were hearing them. Look at the walls. Look at the doors. Everything is mine. You are mine. You always were. The shadows stirred. One of them rose from the corner, tall and humanoid, faceless. It moved toward the mattress, folding the space around it like liquid. The air grew cold, thick, pressing into your lungs with every breath. Sleep now, it coaxed, voice intimate and persistent. Dream and you will see me. You wanted to resist, but exhaustion weighed heavily on your body. Every nerve screamed for rest, and the entity knew it. It whispered your thoughts, reading the desperation in your mind. You are tired. You need to sleep. You want to sleep. Let me see you. Against your will, your eyelids dropped. Darkness swallowed the room. And then the dream began. Not gentle, not subtle, but immediate and absolute. You were no longer in the living room. You were standing in the upstairs hallway, the walls slick and impossibly long. Shadows pooled at the far end, coalescing into humanoid forms. One stepped forward, featureless, faceless, but undeniably present. Do you see me? The voice whispered, threading into your thoughts. You always have. You always will. You tried to run, but the floor warped beneath your feet. Each step felt like wading through thick water. The shadows mirrored your movements, anticipating every turn, every hesitation. The walls pulsed as if breathing. The hallway stretched, elongated, becoming a maze of impossible geometry. A mirror appeared at the far end, fractured and cracked, reflecting yourself, but not the faceless figures hovering behind you. One reached toward you, tendrils of darkness brushing your shoulders, cold and suffocating. Panic surged, but the whispers continued, soft, coaxing. Sleep and remember. You are mine. You cannot leave. You cannot resist. You awoke abruptly, sweat soaking your hair, body trembling. The shadows in the corners of the living room pulsed faintly, patient and still. The notebook had shifted on the mattress, opened to a new page with jagged words you didn't remember writing. The second night is mine. You see now. You belong. You sat, huddled beneath blankets, realizing with sinking dread that the entity had begun using your dreams as another layer of its control. Sleep was no longer a refuge. It was a tool, a trap, a place where it could shape your thoughts.
Chapter 14. The Hallways Shift. By the 14th night, the house had fully claimed its dominion. Every step you took was uncertain. Hallways stretched and twisted. Doors led to rooms that had never existed, and shadows pooled where light should have reached. The air itself seemed alive, pressing against your chest, whispering in voices that mimicked your own thoughts. You stumbled through the living room, notebook clutched tightly, the pages filled with desperate, frantic scribbles. The entity had begun shaping reality itself, bending walls and floors, making space impossible to navigate. Each hallway looped back on itself. Each door opened into darkness or a mirrored version of the room you had just left. You cannot leave, the voice whispered, omnipresent. This house is mine. You are mine. You always were. Panic surged as you ran blindly down a corridor that seemed to stretch for miles. Shadows shifted at the edges of your vision, twisting into humanoid forms that mirrored your movements, anticipating your every turn. The house was no longer just a building, it was an organism,
alive, sentient, and intent on consuming your mind. You tried to scream, but the walls absorbed sound. You pounded on doors that led only to empty space or mirrors reflecting distorted, faceless versions of yourself. The air smelled of iron and damp earth, thick with the presence of something patient and eternal. Then you saw it, the central hallway, impossible and infinite, lined with mirrors. Your own reflection stared back at you, but behind it, shadows moved independently, shaping themselves into grotesque, humanoid, faceless figures. One stepped closer, faceless, humanoid, pulsing with intent. The air around you grew icy, pressing in on all sides. "You see me now," the voice whispered directly in your mind. "You belong. You have always belonged. You cannot escape." You fell to your knees, clutching the notebook, trembling, realizing the full horror. The house was not just around you, it was inside you. Every step, every thought, every heartbeat had been observed, anticipated, and manipulated. The entity had learned you, shaped you, claimed you completely. You looked into one of the mirrors, and for a fleeting instant, you saw yourself as you had been before the house. Then the reflection shifted, and the shadows coalesced, consuming the image, folding you into the entity. A final whisper curled into your mind, intimate, patient, and eternal. "Welcome home. You are mine. Always." The lights flickered, shadows pulsed, and the house exhaled. You no longer knew where the walls ended, where the floors began, or where you stopped and the shadows began. You were part of it now. The house had waited for you, learned you, and finally claimed you fully. Outside, the world continued, oblivious. Inside, the house waited, patient, eternal, and hungry. Its newest resident already woven into its darkness. And the whispers never ceased.